On Antifa, a Department of Justice official tells our network that they are looking into whether professionals have essentially hijacked the protest and are responsible for a lot of the looting, a lot of the unrest and violence that we've seen. They said they've spotted Antifa that are self-identifying themselves in several protest locations around the country. But I also want to point out what's different about today here in Washington, D.C. You remember yesterday morning, there was an obvious show of force from the military, the National Guard, essentially a human barrier between protesters in the White House. Today, they're essentially nowhere to be seen. We've seen a lot of Secret Service and police, but no military, no camouflage, no National Guard. Instead, we are seeing a new fence being built along the White House perimeter right here behind me. You can go ahead and take a look at that activity ongoing. We're also learning about how many officers have been injured in Washington, D.C. In the past 3 days, there have been 50 Park Police and 30 Secret Service that have been injured from these protests. A lot of them have, or some of them have had to be hospitalized. But the Department of Justice is looking into one key thing here that is causing injuries to these officers. Bulk drop-offs of supplies like bricks, rocks, and bottles that are being thrown at officers around the country, but also here in Washington, D.C. They're looking into who's making these drop-offs. So now we're kind of moving, Stuart, on from the protests themselves that at this time today have relatively died down compared to the past few days. Now moving on to what was the cause of a lot of this violence, who is responsible, and how did they get the supplies to injure the officers that have been hurt around the country. Stuart?
Indeed. Hillary, thank you very much indeed. Good report. Now, we're going to look into the colleges as potential breeding grounds